Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, November the 8th. Hope that you're all keeping well and adjusting to the time change. That was fun. So I will now call tonight's meeting to order and begin by recognizing that Municipal Hall and the District of Sault operations and ourselves, we conduct ourselves on the traditional territory of the Tsilhqot'in Nations, and here tonight with gratitude. So, Council, I will now turn your attention to our agenda. Brings us straight into item 5, and that is that the agenda for November 8th, regular meeting of Council, be adopted as circulated. We have no new business nor any supplemental to add. Straight up as presented. Moved by Councillor Beto, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 6. So that puts us right into our public and statutory hearings, where we have dedicated public input for each ones. So what we will do here is receive the item and receive the staff presentation. Then we'll open up to members of the public to comment on those items specifically. So the business license amendment bylaw, as well as the checkout bag regulation bylaw, will each have their specific public input opportunities. And then the balance of the agenda will fall into item 10, the public question and comment, which will cover off any other remaining items on tonight's agenda. So these two items are specific to these items of business, the business license bylaw and the checkout bags. So the first one is 6.1, and that would be the business license amendment bylaw. And so I'll turn this over to staff to take us through the report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've prepared a short overview of the information that is provided in tonight's agenda. Council considered amendments to the business license bylaw on October 12th and gave first through third readings to bylaw number 828. In accordance with the community charter and direction provided from Council, staff then placed advertisements in the Sault News Mirror advising of the proposed amendments, as well as wrote letters to food trucks with inter-municipal licenses issued by the district. Members of the public and business owners were invited to provide written comment or attend tonight's meeting and speak during the public input portion. We've received 2 letters, both of which are included in tonight's agenda. As mentioned on October 12th, there are 2 changes proposed to the business license bylaw. The first is to further define mobile as it relates to mobile food vendors. The intention of this amended definition is not that businesses must move every 24 hours, rather that they must remain self-contained and able to move, or follow regulations to become permanent. In summary, food service businesses are either a mobile food vendor subject to one set of regulations, or they do not meet the new definition of mobile food vendor and they're subject to a different set of regulations, including any development procedures that may apply. The second change to the business license bylaw links to the sewer use bylaw and sets a code of practice that must be followed by mobile food vendors. This will require that all wastewater, including cooking grease, be contained within the mobile operation until such time as it can be disposed of at a sani-dump facility that's equipped to handle such discharge. Operators must keep a disposal log to demonstrate their compliance. Following the public input opportunity provided tonight, Council may consider adoption of the bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Temple. I'll just see then if there's any questions from members of council regarding this. So the change to the business license bylaw, as we heard, was in particular to these particular items, the sewer use bylaw, the mobile food vendors piece. So questions, Councillor St. Pierre?
I had a question with regards, through your worship to staff, I had a question with regards to the mobile definition. So certainly a food truck can probably pick up and leave, but what if it does have, as was mentioned here, structures, and I would suggest a shipping container full of whatever nearby. Do they have to remove the shipping container as well? Does that all have to be cleared off? Or does the food truck simply need to be able to still operate as a self-contained operation and move off-site?
Thank you. Through your worship. So the intention is to be either or. Either you're a food truck that's fully contained and able to move, or you install infrastructure such as a shipping container or other more permanent structures, which would require likely building permits, possibly development permits, dependent on the value of the items that have been installed. And that would then go through a development procedure. It would no longer be a mobile food vendor. It would be essentially a food service business that operating from a more permanent location when they install permanent structures.
I'm just curious, the shipping container obviously is one example in town of something that's happening, so I'm curious, what would the process be to be able to have a shipping container that acts as, a storehouse for your extra inventory or whatever? I'm not exactly sure how it's being used, but I'm curious, what would a process like that look like for a food truck vendor?
I might ask our Director of Development to speak to what that process would look like.
So for a structure to maintain a permanent status on a property, it would need to go through the appropriate building permits. So based on the structure that they put on the property, like a shipping container, if that's been modified, it'll need the required engineered drawings to indicate how it can still meet the necessary building code requirements. Because once you modify a shipping container, it doesn't have its factory approvals valid any longer. And so that's where architect or engineer needs to sign off that it's still structurally sound and meets the building code requirements. So with that, that building permit issuance that recognizes that it's safe for the use in compliance with building code requirements. Also within our building regulations bylaw, we do have provisions for temporary status as well. So if desired to, again, recognize that it should be there on a temporary basis, but using a permanent structure, it can exist there for 12 months, and then they can come back in and apply for a renewal of their building permit to extend that valid permit status for another 12 months and so forth. So it gives the municipality the ability through that temporary status with the building permit to regulate how long it can occur on the property without having permanent status indefinitely.
Other questions? Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, through your worship to staff, I'm referring to the letter from Mr. Fine here in regards to the additional requirement to show that the operation can be moved within 24 hours seems pointless to me. The purpose of that, what is exactly the purpose of that 24 hours? Is that just to make sure that they are a food truck and not some plopped on a piece of land for 6, 8, 9 months at a time? Could you explain a little bit more about that concern? Somebody?
That's exactly correct. It's to demonstrate that the purpose of these mobile food trucks is to have that status that they can be mobile. And so once other structures are being placed in the vicinity of the food truck, or even the food truck itself, if it's no longer able to demonstrate that it can be mobile, it's not meeting that intent as a mobile vendor. And so being able to demonstrate that it can be moved within 24 hours is an opportunity to show that they can be mobile, but not necessarily have to be off the site every 24-hour cycle. They can still remain there.
Yeah, we're not going to go there and say you've been here 3 days, therefore you must move off for a day and come back. They can stay there. They just have to have the ability, demonstrate the ability that they can, same to go into a sani dump. They may need to drive away every third or fourth day to dump their tanks. I just wonder, the validity of that concern. I don't see us moving people off in 3 days if it's not required.
I believe the intent, and I'll just, after my comment, throw it back just to confirm enforcement, but the intent is that the applicant takes on the responsibility that they have means to relocate if required within 24 hours, but that we would not be doing enforcement on that unless there was complaints for other purposes regarding enforcement, but that they could stay there past the 24-hour period. It's just that we as the district have assurance that they can move if needed within that 24 hours.
Okay, I'm happy with that explanation. Thank you.
I believe Mr. Powell was looking for confirmation that that is in fact correct.
That is the case, yes. That part of the definition was added to provide more clarity rather than red tape. It's just sort of to lean into that definition of mobile a little bit further and dissuade from permanent infrastructure being installed that can't be up and moved in 24 hours. And if council wishes, we could remove that part of the definition as well. It's just to further define the self-contained and able to move.
Okay, other questions? At this point, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so just given this is a public hearing, and we need to reiterate some of the things said on October 12th, I think. So your report summary begins with staff have become aware of the need to regulate cooking grease disposal. So can you give us some details on that?
Through your worship, can I clarify that specifically related to the cooking grease? Yeah. I do have our manager of wastewater who's here tonight to speak to that one as well, so he might be able to provide further clarity.
Hello. It became apparent at the wastewater treatment plant in mid-May when the food trucks really started to show up. We started to receive a lot of grease, causing a lot of compliance issues at the plant. And this was an ask from the ministry as well to bring us back into compliance, to get as much grease out of the system as we can, and to bring ourselves back into compliance just for our effluent leaving the plant.
And what kind of impacts does this cooking grease have on your system?
It causes us not to be able to treat with our UV system properly. The grease doesn't settle in our tanks, so we get high fecal chloroform numbers leaving the plant. Yeah, which causes breach in compliance.
Okay. I notice my friend Google tells me that mobile food vending business license guidelines are popping up in all sorts of BC communities. Which BC municipalities did we look to for best practices on this?
We did look at several municipalities in the CRD. Specifically, Colwood has a great deal of food trucks, and they were able to provide some experience and expertise. We did look at one northern BC community specifically related to their grease and their wastewater disposal. I'll have Mr. Bohemer correct me on which one that is. And then our municipal disposer log was actually modeled on the city of Calgary.
Okay. So yeah, those disposal logs, that's pretty standard practice, correct?
There are different ways to ensure compliance. We found this one to be the least onerous to demonstrate compliance. There are some that ask that you report to us on a regular basis in a certain prescribed format, perhaps that you produce receipts essentially of having disposed of the grease, but we found this to be a process that we found palatable for the business owners.
Because, of course, they're very used to filling out logs from VHA, right, with their sanitation and cleanliness, right? Okay. I was curious, in terms of this in-ground structures, do we have any examples among our wonderful array of food trucks and souk of people building in and locking down?
Just, I don't know if we want to get that detailed on pointing out one particular business at this time.
Fine, I will defer that question if it's not easily answered. It could be a yes or no. Okay, I'll stop there.
Other questions from members of council? Just one, just to our staff, our wastewater treatment manager. So can you talk a little bit about the compliance requirements by the province? And so how, when you said that, you know, I sort of always heard, like, store it, don't pour it when it comes to grease, that you don't pour any sort of grease down the drain. I've heard that it causes, you know, the suspension in the water becomes difficult to treat, so then our output is not meeting the provincial standards. But can you share a little bit more about sort of that process, and then what is the impact financially on the district if we did nothing?
Okay, I'll go over first how it causes, how it affects our treatment. The way it affects us is, yeah, as you said, the grease doesn't settle, so our fecal chloroform numbers seem to skyrocket. We're at 200 CFUs, which is chloroform forming units or colony forming units per 100 milliliters for our compliance. And this summer we reached 230,000 on some of our samples leaving the plant, and that's related to the flecks of grease hold to fecal chloroform, and it passes through our UV system, which is the final effluent treatment that we have for the plant. And yeah, and then that's how and when we do our samples weekly, we hit 8 weeks in a row of way above average, and it was just because of the grease. And then in the last few weeks, we started to calm it down with some of the systems we put into place. The total cost so far to to the district is about $50,000 in staff hours and degreaser and aeration systems we've implemented in the last 4 months.
$50,000 so far, and then the province also allows, there's a compliance, and then we start to get fined after
Yeah.
a certain point. What does that look like?
The fines depend on the scenario, but at this point, like, we haven't been fined at all because we're doing measures to stop the issue that we've been having. But it'd be up to the officer who would fine us if we were out of compliance.
Okay, thank you. In another letter provided to our agenda for Mr. Mitchell, he weighs in a bit about CRD water, and I didn't think that municipal water was anything to do with this bylaw, so I'm wondering if there was some way we could write back to the individual just to clarify the concerns expressed, because I didn't think this had anything to do with water connections.
Thank you, Your Worship. We absolutely can speak with Mr. Mitchell. I think there was some crossover between the CRD water comments there, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but speaking about VHA and health safety requirements. So he's correct in that VHA does require food service businesses to demonstrate health and sanitation, and one of the things they require is that they comply with the Drinking Water Protection Act, and that they have a valid operating permit related to their water system. So in our case, that's through the CRD.
Okay, and further to this, there was discussion about, in his letter also, about intermunicipal licenses. However, my understanding when we've discussed intermunicipal in the past, the intent, though, is that you still obtain the business license from your home community. And then obtaining it from where you're based out of, then you can participate where that intermunicipal license is accepted.
That's correct, Your Worship, and you are still bound to follow the bylaws of the municipality in which you're operating. So a good example is that, I believe it's View Royal, but one of the municipalities in the CRD doesn't allow food trucks at all. So just because you have an intermunicipal license issued by us or your home municipality to operate as a food truck still doesn't mean that you can operate contrary to their bylaws.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for members of council? Okay, so we're going to turn over to the public input session or section, which is particular for this particular item only. And so these opportunities are held to allow the public to make submissions to council on particular agenda items. Staff will review the report, then any person who has an interest will have an opportunity to make a submission to council. So before speaking, please state your name and municipality of residence for the record. We don't need your home or business address. And please note your submission forms part of tonight's regular meeting, and the meeting is being video recorded. Video and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the session, will be posted and remain on the district's website. So on that note, I would like to invite any members of the public forward for the food truck, this particular item only. If you could please come to the microphone. You just turn it on by pressing the button at the base. And if you could just introduce yourself, we'd love to hear from you. Hi, welcome, and please take a seat. Turn on the microphone and just... Yep. And
My name is Daryl Dick. I own Flying D's Grill, and I live in CRD, not in Souk. I do believe this has a lot to do with me because I've been pointed at by a few members of our bylaw officers and stuff. First and foremost, I want to address our friend here that is the sewer management. I don't have a clue. It's definitely not us. We have grease interceptors, excuse me, I'm nervous. Grease interceptors on our food trucks. We've never dumped grease down our drains. When it came to my attention through Scott, it was just like I went, wow, and I let him put his boot in his mouth because we have grease interceptors. When he told me I was dumping fry oil down the drain, I went, Scott, you gotta be kidding me. And he pointed me at my chest and said, without a shadow of a doubt, you and him came to the conclusion that I was doing that, and I was like shocked. I agree with a lot of what you want to do with the food truck industry, guys. Like, really, let's regulate it. But I want a blanket regulation on everybody here. I mean, I've disconnected from the sewer. As soon as this happened, I went and bought tanks. I did everything I could. I've pulled my sea can out of there. It was a storage container. I went, sorry. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry. I'm really nervous. When it all came to light on all of this stuff, I was like, wow, what the heck? I've got tripping hazards. They're curbs, like they're parking lot curbs. I painted them orange. I took my signs down. I did everything I could. I went to the city hall there, to the building inspection agency, and talked to the inspectors and said, what permit do I need? I don't know. Went the next day. I don't know. 4 days in a row. I don't know. Finally emailed Matthew and said, what permit do I need, Matthew? He says, Daryl, you need a building development permit. And I went, fine, let's rock it out. You know, I want to comply. I want to comply. I want to do everything right. I'm not here to like pollute Sioux. Like we've never dumped grease down the drain. That's just like crazy. Finally, Matthew gets to me 2 days before my deadline and says, I need a building development permit. I rush through it. I get the building development permit. And they tell me I got to give them a $5,000 deposit. Like just, it may come back to me, it may not. Whether this grease thing, I don't know. When I leave the site, like what I might leave there, it's private property I'm leasing. I've leased private property that says I can have a sea can there, I can have my tent there. I get the engineering. I've paid for the engineering, guys. Like I've paid for that engineering to have my tent there, and it's not for me, it's for my clients that come and have food so they don't have to stand in the bloody rain. This is just really an emotional time for us all. I want continuity. I want people, I want all of us, all the food trucks to come to some conclusion that we can all agree with the city council and everything. I don't want people polluting our freaking sewers. I don't want garbage. I don't want anything like that. This is what our life's dictating. It's COVID, guys. I'm serving people that don't have COVID passports. I'm 6 feet away. We're all cool. It's just, we're an essential service, I think, guys. We're really trying our hardest, and we're not making $1 million here. So to pay $5,000 for a deposit is just astronomical. And that's when I told, and I apologize for my terminology, I told my fellow inspector to pound sand. I'm not paying it. I'd rather go spend money on a trailer to bring a trailer in there instead of giving you guys, and I apologize for that, but $5,000 of my money to hang on to till whenever I leave. That's just ridiculous. I mean, I have no issues of paying for this permit, you guys. And I've already spent $3,000 to bring my containers for my storage, just to house my stuff for my food. I'm a smoked meat food truck. I have a smoker there, I've got a storage container and that, and I have a tent. I have it all in my lease with the landowner. It's all descripted, it's all laid out, actually in a building plan on my lease. And to be told that this $5,000 is because, well, maybe we have to move your stuff, and I'm like, why would you have to move my stuff off of private property? There's no reason for it. I mean, yeah, take my business license, but there's no reason for you guys to move my property. I mean, that's my job. And yeah, maybe I got overzealous on trying to provide a good product for Souk, but man, Souk loves us. Woo-woo. That's all, guys. I love you, man. Thank you for your time. All you guys, rock on.
No, we appreciate you attending tonight, and it just gives us this perspective, right, on what's going on. So, no, and I know that the way this room is set up, it's sort of designed to be confrontational in a sense. We're all here, you're there, so it does make the public feel vulnerable. I totally get that. At the same time, we're grateful that you came and shared with us so that we learn how this is impacting, and then we find a way forward. I think it's fair to say that council has always tried to find a way to be innovative and to encourage small businesses. We're still learning a lot. which is why we tried the mobile pilot program and trying to encourage folks to stay local, eat local, those sorts of things, and to get out and finding that flexibility. It's just the risk aspect, and I don't like the fact that you feel you're responsible for damaging the wastewater system. It is something that we have to take all businesses, all residents. So restaurants, same thing. You know, whether they've done it or not, they have a role to play in the safety of our system, whether they like it or not. It's the way it has to be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that, yeah, that's unfortunate. In the local paper.
Yeah, the souvenir put a neat thing out that was just totally, it wasn't an article, it was actually just an advertisement. It had my picture, Tompkins' picture, it was like, and they got to shape up their act, they had to clean up their act, was what the headline was. And it was just, it's so wrong, because there's not a chance that any of us put grease in the drain.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the grease came from, my brother, I'm so sorry. Maybe it was somebody else, but to point
Yeah.
a finger, I'm sure it should be up there.
Okay. Okay. Other speakers?
Not really.
That's okay. We appreciate hearing from you. Other speakers tonight on this? Anyone? Anything? Oh, okay. Well, you're representing, so. Yes.
I'm a little unclear, as this gentleman that just spoke, he's required to get a building permit. What is the building permit for? I know that the mobile truck has to be capable of moving within 24 hours, and it seems that it does, as holding tanks for affluent. So I'm not clear as to, is there another structure down there that I'm not familiar with?
When the matter was brought before the building department, at that time, there was the CCAN that was on the property. We were made aware that it had been modified from its factory design, so that was what I had mentioned earlier about the engineered drawings requiring building permit approval. As well, there was a tent that was set up, which also needs to meet building code regulations because it's, at the time, was being left up and not being taken down, so it was no longer considered temporary at that instance. It was being set up on a permanent basis on that site. So there was a number of those structures that required building permit approval.
So basically, the food truck in itself is basically in compliance. That's my understanding?
I can't speak fully
Okay,
for
yeah,
that one.
yeah, I understand, yeah.
I know specifically with regards to the CCAN and the
tent
tent,
and
those
the
were brought
CCAN.
to our attention as we went through that process, just informing the applicant of what was going to be necessary. I can't confirm if...
Now, if this, this might not just be for you, this is for staff. If a trailer was there to store his stuff on wheels, would that be in compliance and not need a building permit?
If there is a structure on the property that can comply with being a mobile vendor that can be moved off-site, then that would be my understanding without fully looking at the specifics of it.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting a more accurate picture now. I was just trying to visualize down there exactly what the problems were, and you've outlined it fairly good. Thank you.
Yes, let me just go to the other counselor, and then I'll come over to you. Counselor St. Pierre?
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for further clarification on the CCAN and the modifications. My understanding is that they're certified. Not sure which body certifies them, but they're certified, and that as soon as they're modified, they require a permit, which I would imagine is for liability reasons. Is that correct?
That's correct, and typically when we're to issue approval of those, they've been accompanied by a stamped engineer drawing, verified by the engineer that it is compliant with building code requirements.
Okay. So what I'm curious about is the $5,000, because it sounded like the $5,000 was to make sure that if the district needed to remove the CCAN, that it could afford to bring in a crane and remove it or move it. But I'm not clear if that's actually the case. That's just what it sounded like. So could you confirm whether or not that's actually what the deposit or the $5,000, which seems to be kind of a sticking point here, so I'm just curious about that piece.
That's correct. So under the temporary building section of the building regulations bylaw, when issuing those temporary permits, the district is able to take 10% of the value of construction as a security to ensure compliance at the time that 12-month period has expired, that if the structure hasn't been removed off the property or whatever the case might be to bring the property back into compliance prior to the building permit, that the district has securities in hand to require that compliance to occur, indicating to the applicant that they would be exempt from requiring a development permit. At that time, at previous conversations, knowing that exemption would have to be for $50,000 or under, 10% of that would be up to a maximum of $5,000.
Up to a maximum, or?
If we were to indicate that they were exempt from being required to get a development permit, that exemption is based on construction value of $50,000 or less, so 10% of that.
Right.
That would be our maximum. Otherwise, if the construction value was greater than that, we would then require a development permit as well. But we wanted to work with them, understanding that their construction value would be less than that, and it would only be the building permit process to be undertaken.
Okay, and so to get back to the nuts and bolts, the 10% is meant to basically defray the district's costs in case demolition and cleanup was needed to remove something that shouldn't be there. Is that correct?
That's correct, as per the building bylaw.
Okay. So in this particular case, well, I guess a CCAN doesn't cost $5,000 to remove, so I think that that'll be something to pursue later. That's more of a comment at this point, and I'll just thank you for your answers.
Councillor McMath?
With, like we discussed, like a small business, $5,000 is a massive amount. So can there not be a clause that we look at where if it's leased on private property, that landowner retain some of the responsibilities, so then you don't have a local business owner that has to fork out $5,000? So ultimately it becomes the landowner's responsibility, should they leave everything there, their responsibility to clean up?
At that point, given that our application was with the applicant for the business that they're applying for building permit requirements, now involving the landowner, we need further provisions in the bylaw to indicate how that could be addressed. Mm-hmm. So I believe that might be something separate outside of the building permit process and part of the lease agreements that the property owner might be having to support what businesses they're having on the property. The $5,000 was indicated as the maximum amount. If a construction value on the building permit was less than that, then we would put towards 10% of whatever that construction value is going to be.
Okay.
Okay, sir, you wanted to ask, yeah, please come up. Yep. You'll just need to reintroduce yourself for the record.
My name is Gerald Dick, Flying D's Grill again. Thank you very much. Well, what I read in the bylaw after all this came about is I thought it was $5,000 or 1% of the building cost. You see, I'm being slated into what it is to build a single-family dwelling. So it's $5,000 or 1%. Is that not correct?
Under Part 11 of the building bylaw regulation, Section 56, I indicates that security deposit in the form of cash or a letter of credit for 10% of the value of the temporary building, which must be used by the district to remove the building after 1 year, the date of final inspection required on the bylaw, or must be returned to the owner if the owner removes the temporary building within that 1 year period.
Okay, well, my CCAN's worth $5,000 to buy. I paid to ship it down there, I guess. 10% is $500. I mean, I really had no issues about getting a building permit for this stuff to be there. It's a storage facility. It's not, I'm not cooking in it. I'm not doing anything in it. It stores, it's a freezer and refrigeration and dry goods storage. I don't justify that. I mean, I've got no issues buying the permit, paying for the permit, getting the permit, and I've tried to jump through all the hoops, which is what it seems to be. To put me in the same slot as actually developing something, I'm not building anything. I've actually craned it, and I've showed how mobile it is when I pulled it out of there in 32 minutes. It put it on the back of a truck, and I drove it back to my house. Cost me $1,000, but I did it. My smoker cost me $700. That's fine. It's mobile. if you want me to put it all on trailers, and thank you for your comments about that. Now, if it has wheels on it, I did ask our building inspectors, because you can buy kits for your C-cans to put wheels underneath it. That's not going to work. I said, fine. So now, if I get a trailer, a 20-foot trailer, can I not just put it there, the same thing? That's the question.
Just point of order.
Yes.
Can you please address the mayor?
Oh, I'm so sorry, so sorry.
Okay.
I'm so confused right now, guys. This is new to me. This is the first time here. I love all you, man. It's just,
I've been where you are.
yeah.
So the question I heard was if the C-CAN is on a trailer then that requirement no longer exists because it's movable.
But I've also shown that it is very movable by, like, moving it in 32 minutes. I'm so sorry if I interrupted.
Okay, that's okay. I think councillors have a few other questions. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the $5,000. If the C-CAN's worth $5,000 and it's 10% for removal of it, then the permit would be $500. Is it a minimum of $5,000, or is it 10% of the structure costs? So just like a clarification on that. I'm not quite clear.
So the code is built on us relying on the advice of qualified professionals. So it's the applicant's responsibility to have a qualified professional provide us with the drawings and the cost estimates. So the estimates would be what the qualified professional provides to us. And again, this is all to meet code. If the trailer meets the definition of mobile, then likely it won't need to meet building code. But again, we will want to make sure that there's a qualified professional that gives an opinion on that.
Thank you.
Councillor McMath?
This is challenging because it's new, and so we're trying to get consistency and we're trying to get regulations across the board. So while we go through that process together, we're going to have all these sorts of questions. So how do you qualify something is movable within 24 hours?
So, as I had mentioned earlier, the onus is on the applicant to demonstrate to staff that the structure can be movable within 24 hours. So as part of their application submission, we expect that rationale to be provided and accepted by staff through the review of the application process.
So on that, so if you have an applicant that says, yes, this can be moved within 24 hours, is there anything past that which you would say, no, no?
It would have to make logical sense of whatever structure it is that they're proposing. If it's not on wheels, that they have indicated how they're moving it to the site, how they intend to remove it off the site, and that we're satisfied that that can be done within 24 hours.
So if you have a C-CAN, we're just going to use the C-CAN example. This is not particular to one business. This is just so we have an understanding for all the food trucks. So if you have a C-CAN on a private piece of property and that applicant says, I can move that C-CAN within 24 hours, I would hire this company and we'd move it. Would that justify it staying and not being a permanent structure?
If they've met the definition by demonstrating it can be moved in 24 hours, I believe staff would be satisfied with that from an enforcement standpoint and compliance.
And what is the definition of a qualified person reporting on those?
So it would, if it's to do with building code, it would be an engineer.
The mobility aspect?
Then that would be up to us to, I guess, determine if it meets the definition for mobile. Just one other thing, like the site that, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. This site it's wide open. Having more than just a food truck is obviously not an issue, but on smaller parcels, we might get into parking requirements, taking up more parking stalls. So that whole site plan is really an important piece for us to make sure that it doesn't impact on other bylaws that we have as well.
Yeah, of course, and that's just the piece that we're navigating because what makes sense for one doesn't make sense for the other, but just having like a carte blanche definition here. So should an applicant get to a phase where they think they can remove their pieces within 24 hours, but staff disagrees, where does it go from there? And who is making that choice? Like you say, it follows logic, but I mean, that's so gray.
Yeah, so I think what it would come down to is the definition of public assembly. So where's the public in relation to these buildings, and is there any danger to the public? So a tent, for example, certainly would have to meet code. It would have to make sure that if it meets snow load and those types of safety concerns, if there's an awning on a trailer or a sea can that people will be under, that would be the same thing. But just the sea can itself likely would not fall under the public assembly definition in our building code bylaw.
Okay, and then back to the piece where you're just trying to support like a local business and having a private property owner eat some of that risk for the removal of that. What is, in your opinion, what is the best way for us to sort of navigate that piece?
Well, I think that what Mr. Palo was suggesting is we need security, whether we get it from the applicant, the owner, or whatever. If we don't have that security, probably our only remedy is to go to the courts. And that's what the security is as much about as anything, is just making sure that we have the security in hand to make sure the obligations are fulfilled and not having to go to the courts to do that.
Yeah, and I want us to maintain that piece, but also alleviate the burden of like the higher price points that come in.
Right. And I'm not sure where the confusion around $5,000 was. It is a percentage of the estimated costs that are provided with the application.
The percentage for me isn't in question. It's just how do you assist a small business by using someone who perhaps has more resources? So if that private property owner has more resources, it's less of an investment or a risk for them, but it also still protects the district from having to do the cleanup after.
We could work with both sides to get it into the lease agreement, would be a suggestion, but
Okay.
we don't want to take on that liability.
No, of course not. Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm wanting to find a way for us to address the policy, but also how do we come to a remedy with the one, we have a business owner that's struggling with this. Seemingly, the policy seems to be fine. We have 2 items of correspondence that we can find a way to address those concerns. We have no other public here speaking on it in particular. So is there an issue, so I'll ask council, and maybe since you're still sitting here, with the bylaw in question, if we adopted this tonight, it comes into effect immediately, but it still leaves some pieces of uncertainty for you in terms of how to carry on. So it seems like there's a separate piece and another follow-up discussion maybe that you need to have with our staff. Is that correct? So that we can remedy that? And the bylaw, this policy is fine, presumably? We haven't just debated it yet, but...
If I could just say 2 more words.
Yeah.
My only question is why would the city of Sauk have to remove my stuff from private property whom I have a lease with? It's a lease with a company, and it would be on their onus to remove it if I'm derelict in my bills or whatever reason. I mean, I don't know how the city of Sauk would be under the onus of having to remove my sea can storage unit and my stuff from there because it's a private lease, it's on private property. It's like a sea can on John Doe's property. How would Sauk be responsible for that? That's where I'm wondering where you're coming from. How are you responsible for removing my stuff from this private property whom I have a lease with that states I can have a sea can, a tent, and my food trailer?
Okay, I'm guessing it's because that the lease and anyone operating, like the landlord, has put it on you to ensure that you meet local prevailing bylaws, and they've passed that on to you to do. I mean, I haven't seen your lease, but potentially that is what has happened, is that as the landlord, they're not going to take that on, but they're willing to allow their tenant to make sure that they obtain, if a bank opens up, they want to put up signage, it meets municipal prevailing sign bylaws. If they add an awning, the colors have to conform to whatever prevailing bylaws the municipality has. So the landlord has passed it on to the tenants to make sure they comply, and then this is flared up. But in this case, when do we step in? I guess if it's on fire, we'd probably take it away.
Yeah, you'd have to have a fire.
There are rats living in it, other complaint-driven pieces. then there is a whole other process where we need to step in. We usually, as I know, reach out to the landlord and ask them to come into compliance. If they don't, eventually there's a process. We've done this where we've moved in now and have absorbed it and then tack it onto property taxes.
Yeah.
But is that typically correct, Mr. McInnes?
Yeah, so in this case, if there is no permanent infrastructure, there will be no need. It's a moot point. The CCAN was determined to be permanent infrastructure. Any tie into any infrastructure there is permanent infrastructure. If there's no need for that, there's going to be no need for a building permit or no need for security. If there is, then it would be through the building permit application where all of this stuff is determined and dealt with.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre?
What I've just heard is that the CCAN was determined to be permanent infrastructure, but it's not. So can't we just change that?
And, yeah, I'll have to talk with our chief building inspector, because some of the arguments tonight, I think, are compelling. Is it permanent or is it not permanent? If it can be thrown on a flatbed and moved away, is that permanent infrastructure? But perhaps I'll defer to Mr. Paolo.
And just as a follow-up, it also makes a certain amount of sense that our speaker could have simply rented a large amount of space and put down 10 CCANs that had nothing to do with their business. And then we would have nothing to do with it and obviously have no liability. Is it because there's a business license involved and suddenly the district takes on liability? I'm not sure how we're taking on liability. Is it because of our business license in this particular case, or?
No, it's to clean up after the temporary permit is up.
But if there's a lease between two individuals having nothing to do with the district, why is the district responsible for the cleanup? This seems unusual or odd.
Mr. Paolo, I'll give you the chapter and verse in the building bylaw why it's necessary.
So as part of that process, as mentioned earlier, the applicant is required to get a building permit to operate the structures that they have on their property. And whether there's a business license involved or whatever types of structures and uses are being brought to a property, depending on what the zoning bylaw allows for those uses within that designated zone, they'll have to comply. And so in this instance, being a commercial use, a mobile food vendor, and not requiring a development permit, the only requirement was for that building permit process, and the building bylaw indicates that they require those securities. One thing I think we're missing on is the fact that a lot of the information that we've received tonight in moving forward is based also on the premise of the amendment that's being proposed within this policy. The valuation on this property was made without these amendments in place. It's based on the current policy that's in place, and therefore that determination of temporary versus permanent and the 24-hour piece that's been added is not available to staff to make that evaluation at this time, and that's why it's resulted where we are tonight. Certainly with this policy amendments being put in place, I believe it puts both the business operator as well as staff in a better position to work with them to move forward on a path to compliance.
Okay. No, that's helpful, Mr. Paolo. Thank you for that. And then just going forward, like, I am aware of other CCANs within the municipality that are either used by not-for-profit, other businesses. We have one ourselves at the end of Whiff and Spit Park. So that's where I'm just a bit,
So,
But
Mr.
it's-
Paolo, you mentioned alterations, and that seemed to be a driver to a CCAN. Looking at the crystal ball and reading the tea leaves, there are hazards with CCANs and hazardous materials that are stored in them, and ventilation. Not something that we're contemplating at this point, but there are some real hazards that can be in those storage containers. So it's something that has been prevalent in...
separate,
Yes.
separate piece. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Daryl. Daryl Dick.
Mike,
I'm just curious as to whether or not you have business insurance.
do.
So you do have business
Yes.
insurance. So if your sea can were to light up for some reason, the smoker catches fire?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd be foolish not to.
all right.
okay, fair enough, thank you. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just direct to the speaker, the applicant. From what you heard here now, and, with this new addition here, and the definition of mobile, and
Yes.
staff's assurances that they will try and work things out, are you comfortable with us moving forward with this?
I'm absolutely comfortable with you guys getting continuity with all food trucks. Like, I want that. I want everybody to be held to the same standards I've been held to.
I
And
think
that's the
that's-
one thing I'm concerned about.
Okay.
I feel kind of picked on, but that's all good, But the
Okay.
thing is I'm prepared right now just to go buy a 20-foot trailer and put it there because to conform. I tried to do the building permit process, but at $5,000, I'd rather spend 15 grand on a trailer. Just because I thought that was just a kicking.
That's changed now, though. With this bylaw coming in
Yeah.
and the definition of mobility,
Yeah.
it may be acceptable as it will
I
have
think
to
it
work.
should be, because I've.
Well,
broken it.
we'll let staff, I mean, they get paid to resolve these things.
Yeah.
You've brought the problem to us, which I really
Thank
do
you.
appreciate. I think we all do. And I think staff, too, has made a statement that
Yeah.
the initial inquiries as to what was going on down there was before they brought this amendment. And they brought this
Absolutely.
amendment forward to address those concerns that you've brought.
Yeah.
And we thank you for that, because we do want to have conformity throughout the district on that.
Absolutely.
And anybody, this council is not interested in making an extreme hardship, but there has to be some regulations. It's not the wild, wild west, and I
That's
think
it.
you're okay with that. So if we pass this the way it is, and that assurance from staff to work with you, and whatever the outcome is, I'm not sure, would that go a long way to making things better for you?
I'm cool with what you guys do, really.
Okay.
I think you're gonna make the best decision, and I'm gonna conform to your rules, because I'm not here to fight you guys. I want.
Yeah, well, we're not here to fight you either. We're trying to make
Come on,
it
Al,
work for
arm
everybody.
wrestle, buddy. Anyways, no, thank you very much for listening to me, guys. I really appreciate all of your time. And thank you, guys.
Okay, so council, I think we have a way forward here. And of course, we always welcome hearing back from the public if things don't work out. With food trucks, it is new, really, and they're growing, so it's something that we're evolving with as well. So there's growing pains associated with it, but we're trying to find a way to enable businesses to thrive, and we hear other municipalities are saying, no way, no thank you. So we are recognizing there is a pandemic, there is a need for folks to get out, and to stay outside and to enjoy a good meal with friends and to find a way forward in doing that. So we do implement policy to look for fairness, so I think we're getting somewhere. It's not our intent that a sole business be felt singled out. The media does its thing, we do our work, we battle with them too sometimes, and that's just part of living in a democracy, but it does allow us that opportunity to hear, at least it sparked a conversation in our community. It allows us to solve a problem. So here we are. Okay, council, so here's where we're at, and that is that council adopt the bylaw cited as business license amendment bylaw number 828-778-01, 2021. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor McMath. So as the mover, go ahead, motivate.
Thank you. This made sense to me before coming to council. I was a bit anxious to hear from the public to what would come out of it and if we were moving in the right direction. I am really grateful for you, Gerald, coming forward and speaking to us tonight, because as you spoke about your concerns, I realized that they were all being addressed in the bylaw, and that's the direction that we would like to head as council. So it sounds like that we're headed in the right direction, and please note that if we need to change it, we can certainly make changes in the future. I'm very sorry that you in particular were a pioneer for this. But you were a key part in bringing this conformity to our community, so thank you. I know I should be addressing council, but I did want to mention that as well. So I am happy to move adoption for this bylaw.
Okay, Councillor McMath?
I guess this is the perfect example of how council is supposed to function. So you have an issue come forward in the community, staff can only do so much because we give them rules or handcuffs to work with, and so this is the process to have those pieces come together, so I'm happy.
Anything else from members of council?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm just pleased that there's unanimity around the disposal of grease from your food trucks with the Santa dumps, and that's great, and good to see that you've demonstrated 32 minutes. I don't think you need to go ahead and buy a trailer if you can demonstrate 32 minutes, and equally you can take down that tent in record time too, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you.
The one outstanding piece for me, though, is I think that it's been some time, is some informing the community about how special our wastewater plant is and the bacteria that does its work within the plant. As this came up and I was speaking with other residents, I heard things like, oh, you're not supposed to pour bacon grease down the sink. I do that all the time. And I'm like, no, like you're supposed to store that in a jar under the sink. Okay. So I think there is also an opportunity to talk about the plant, the good work that it does, and how we all have a shared responsibility, certainly those that are on the septic system, to keep the system whole and running. Even as I understood it, with a lot of rainwater coming in and cold water, it can be a challenge. There's bacteria that's hard at work in the plant that digests everything so that we get clean water, which is the whole objective, into the waterways. But I think there's an educational piece about what you flush and what you don't. Folks on septic take it a little bit more to heart because it's right on their property and it's something that they have to take care of. But those of us in the sewer specialty, you flush it and you just want it to go away and never come back. Nothing raises the blood pressure more than rising toilet water. So it's just, where then does it go? And I know that our schools get a lot of information, school trips to the plant. A lot of this was shut due to COVID, though, so that education piece of children bringing lessons home has been hindered because of COVID as well. So how else can we inform the community about the plant we have and how we all have a shared responsibility on the system, keep it that way? And it's the same, like, that doesn't mean you can go and, I see some of the drains, there's fish on it, all water leads to the ocean. Like, you don't pour it down there either in the storm drains. That we have a shared responsibility to keep the environment whole. So I think that's another takeaway for me anyway, of another educational piece that is missing that we need to do. All right, so on that note, I'll call a question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Of course, you're able to depart, but we always like it when folks stay with us straight till the end of the meeting. So feel free to tuck in and scare.
Thank you guys so much for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great evening.
Well, a checkout bag regulation is next, speaking of plastic going into the waterway. Okay, so item 6.2, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council gave first and second reading to bylaw number, I'm going to change my screen so it's the right number on there. No, it's the wrong one on there. Bylaw number 831 at the October 12th regular council meeting. There. Following that meeting, staff placed advertisements in the Sauk News Mirror advising of the proposed bylaw. Members of the public were again invited to provide written comment or attend tonight's meeting to take part in the public input opportunity. There have been no written comments provided. As mentioned during my October 12th report, bylaw number 831 is a new checkout bag regulation bylaw intended to replace bylaw number 734, which was adopted by council in 2019. The district's original checkout bag bylaw, 734, followed the lead of several other municipalities, including Victoria. 1 month after the district adopted bylaw 734, the City of Victoria lost a BC Court of Appeals hearing and their bylaw was found to be invalid. At issue during court proceedings was whether municipalities have the sole authority to enact such a bylaw or whether they require the approval of the province. The courts found that provincial approval was required. Victoria and the District of Sauk had not followed this procedure, and along with several other municipalities now had unenforceable bylaws. The province has since passed legislative amendments that permit municipalities to enact bylaws that prohibit single-use plastic items without provincial approval. As such, a new checkout bag regulation bylaw has been drafted. The bylaw will effectively ban businesses from providing plastic checkout bags to customers. There's a requirement that the bylaw come into effect no sooner than 6 months following adoption, allowing for a period of public education. Again, following tonight's public input opportunity, in this case, council may consider third reading of the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Temple. Seems like such old news now, because the world has moved on. And here's our bylaw now catching up. However, questions from members of council? Any members from the public like here today to speak on this particular item? This is specific to the plastic bags. Like I said, the world's moved on. We're catching up now. Okay, so recommendation is that council give third reading to the bylaw cited as checkout bag regulation bylaw number 831, 2021. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any comments? There was that time where we had that presentation from the plastic bag, non-humanoid. Yes, made out of plastic bags in chambers. That was pre-COVID. It was a different lifetime. I have a picture of myself and this thing and Councillor St. Pierre in it. So anyway, long time ago. Okay, so seeing nothing. Oh, yes?
As the mover, yeah, I'll just make a couple comments. Yeah, this has become the new normal in municipalities, increasingly so. And of course, at the national level, we have, by the end of the year, an announcement coming on the banning by the federal government of grocery bags, straws, stir sticks, six-pack rings, cutlery, and food takeout containers. So that, yeah, I assume that will prevent these items entering the country. And now here at the municipal level, we work on the retail side of things. And of course, as I said last time, both Village and Western have voluntarily banned plastic bags at the beginning of 2020 because it was the right thing to do, was the quote unquote. So our retailers, I think, are well on side with this.
Yep. Other questions, comments? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, and I've mentioned this before to council, is having gone down to the wholesaler to buy these products, they do not offer plastic anymore. Everything is biodegradable, and they're not always the greatest, but I couldn't buy a plastic straw if I wanted to now from the wholesaler. They don't even have them. So we're just getting in with the times. We are changing, and plastic is deadly in the environment. So I'm pretty pleased with this. It's a good start.
Councillor St. Pierre.
It's a question and a comment. I'm curious, because we've got the federal government moving forward with legislation that would, obviously curtail at source a lot of these plastics without a need for local government to intervene. I think there had been some discussion of sending this, because of our larger jurisdiction provided by the province, to the Climate Action Committee. Are we still doing that? Or was that, I don't remember what our decision was on that, so I'm curious, I'd like that clarified. What's happening at this point? Are we simply waiting on the feds and that's it?
I believe so. I think part of it was that industry is already innovating and solving it. I saw something about some six-pack ring that will dissolve in the ocean so that it doesn't threaten shoreline birds anymore.
Okay.
So I think that's where we're seeing advances in that way.
No, happy about that. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, I didn't see it going back to the, okay. All right, I will call the question then. All those in favor, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. We're getting to adoption of minutes, so we have meeting minutes from October the 12th regular council meeting, October 18th committee of the whole meeting, October 18th special council meeting, October 25th regular council meeting, November 1st special council meeting. And it is that the following minutes be adopted together as a block. Move adoption by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Logans. Discussion, corrections, questions?
45 pages of perfection.
How about that?
It's amazing.
Okay, so that's moved, that's seconded. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Excellent. Into delegations. So we have two tonight, and the first delegation is from our Sauk Region Chamber. And we have a presentation from Ms. Karen Mason and Mr. Mike Menard. So welcome, and you may need to bring another chair forward, perhaps. You're all over it, and just turn on the microphone, and when you start speaking, the timer will start ticking, and there's 5 minutes set aside for you on tonight's agenda.
Your Worship, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Menard, and I am the current Vice President of the Sauk Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm here on behalf of the Chamber, along with the other Chamber members' support team, to explain in detail what services we provide to the business community that are registered with the Chamber, those who are not, and those who are interested in becoming a business because of, in part, of your funding. We have an extensive student program that allows us to fulfill our mandate with the district. One of our assessment criteria for the federal grant eligibility is ready to hire, supervise, train our full-time and part-time students. We have done this as often as we can because we believe in the process of student education, government funding, and community service. In 2020, during the pandemic, we hired 3 students with the aid of a government grant, and in 2021, this year, we're able to hire 2 more students with another government grant. These grants provide us at the Chamber and the district with a host of projects that have been noticed and talked about in the community, like the Everything in Sauk booklet here that we have, that you guys have in front of you. Has been a huge success. A very high-quality book is one of our many success stories that is being brought to you this evening. This booklet was researched, written, photographed with the aid and supervision of full-time office staff. It is a professional, high-caliber presentation of Sauk and the surrounding area we live in. This is a direct result of your funding to the Chamber, and we thank you. Our students, as well, with the aid of our staff, prepare a series of flyers that were researched, written, and compiled with the aid of your funding in regards to investing in Sauk. The flyers spawned 6 other flyers, such as tourism, culture, food and drink, one of my favorites, senior services, commerce industry, and clean energy. The flyers are targeted, marketed specific for those in that field. Our newsletters that we publish are mostly compiled and managed by our students. They bring a youthful eye to the information we distribute. Our Chamber flyer has gone from 450 views per month to 550 views and is growing each and every week. This is a testament to our success in being in touch with the business community and a testament to your support. The open rate of our newsletter, basically the time spent reading the newsletter, is almost double of the industry standard. That directly shows us that we are doing something right and we're above the industry standards. Now, put aside for a minute the students that are involvement, and we have a fantastic Chamber infrastructure that gives the public the ongoing support for their businesses and their future, both registered and non-registered members. For example, we had our first Shop Sauk contest, say that fast, and we've had a tent set up where the John Phillips Memorial Park was and the Music Fest. And this was a tremendous success, both with the tickets that we gave out, but primarily with the amount of interest in the Chamber and the services we provide to community. We gave out a dozen applications to new and existing businesses in the area, and we got a whole lot back as members. If you browse our online newsline, you will see the almost weekly announcements of new businesses joining our Chamber. And this, I believe, is the norm, an ever-expanding business base that benefits everybody. The basket contents were supplied by our local businesses, and they were eager to give, because to promote their business, their products, their service in this great district of Sauk. The baskets were worth over $1,600, and for the first time, it was a big success. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if it's over $2,000. And by the way, if you win the basket, your Christmas shopping is pretty much done. We have a new grant that we applied for on November 1st, and we hope that this grant will significantly promote local economy and will consist of 2 months long of advertising commercial on Check TV, postcards to all the 9 VZ postal codes, and a rack of brochures in the BC ferries to all the travelers coming onto the island to work, visit, and play with us. In order to operate properly, we're taking a director training program next year to ensure the proper, ethical, valued way of conducting the day-to-day business of the Sauk Regional Chamber of Commerce. This ethical, meaning method of operation is what all governing bodies, nonprofit, corporate entities should teach, follow, in my belief. As per our agreement, we at the Chamber have provided to Sauk and the surrounding areas a tremendous amount of information regarding business education to our members and non-members in the district. Our readers of 550 plus have received over 40 different government and non-government courses, info sessions that will aid, supplement, and educate our resident business owners and future business owners on the help that is required for them in their business. This is what we do for the community. We guide business owners to the product or service that will benefit them and help them get promoted in their new or existing business in the area. In the future, we will take what we have and create and grow with the community in Sooke to become bigger and better with all businesses. New and exciting to be part of our reinstated in-person Newcomers Club. Also, we will reinstate in our Sooke mixers, our multi-chamber mixers, and a great success until the pandemic hit us all. In closing, I thank you for your time, and I look forward for the bright future ahead of all of us. 5 minutes. See what happens when you practice?
Well done. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the booklet. I think it's just great, really well done, and I love the sip, savor, see, and
I
do.
was just going to comment.
That's like, that's really innovative and just really fun. And when I'm done talking,
You steal the thunder.
yeah, I just think it's fantastic, and it's just so much better than the old live, work, play that I just don't want to hear at all. It's just fun, and I think it really brings out the flavor of our community and the character. So well done on the whole thing. It's just great. Now, Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I was really excited when I saw that, and I just looked through it, and, grab a picnic lunch at Jenny's Country Pantry, a picnic to go. I've often talked to you, say, what is there to do in Sooke? There's a lot to do in Sooke.
There is.
And to have that out in the public, I actually talked to 2 cyclists at Little Vienna Bakery the other day. I showed them the transportation master plan because they were bikers, and I would love to give them something like that so they can enjoy their stay in our community. So good job. Thank you. I'm done now. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Councillor Logans?
Chamber. The last 2 times you were in front of us, I gave you a lot of grief, and it's true.
Noticed.
I did, and you've completely blown me out of the water. This is more than I thought we would ever see in this term, and I know that there's more to come. So all of my worries disappeared long ago because I keep seeing those emails come in my inbox, and I'm like, wow, these folks are doing some incredible things. So it's even better to hear a bit more detail about that tonight. I really appreciate that you've come here. I'm so excited for the direction that you've taken and really proud of you for everything. I hope you're proud of yourselves too.
Very much.
Oh, that's great. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'll echo that. Congratulations to Ms. Santowski as well for your work. I guess it's 2 years that we've now been funding you, so it's extremely well. Yeah, it's warranted, I think, our $28,000 or whatever it is per year. So I'm curious, though. I had a few questions, if you don't mind. I'm interested in how the Chamber figures it will integrate with the district's community economic development strategy going forward. You've now seen a couple of drafts of that. What are your thoughts on that strategy and how the Chamber will work with it?
Well, first of all, I'm new to the area a little bit, so I am going to be joining with the committee starting in January when I step up to presidency. And at that point there, I think that any way we can contribute, aid, facilitate the need, we will be. I also think that we are going to get a lot more information from local business owners, okay, on their needs and their wants in the community, and basically relay those to you guys so you can have a better information on making your decisions for the community.
Okay. Yeah, on that subject with the business walk, I know, Ms. Mason, you were out on that walk, and I did have a gander at your minutes, which you kindly post on your website, and you noted local businesses are being overtaxed, was one of the primary messages. Would you talk more on that subject?
That was, can I talk with my mask on, or do you want to, I don't know what to do here. So with regards to the walkabout, and we had members of staff, DOS staff on that as well, the number one complaint we got from businesses was they were feeling they were being overtaxed. I mean, all we can do is relay that message, where we can't affect the taxes. That's something that we gave back, and you guys can do what you want with that. But what we have been doing too is with working with the DOS, with the Economic Development Committee, there were things, we've had all kinds of workshops and strategies, and so the parts, the pieces of, there's a part of the, God, it's funny how nerves kick in all of a sudden when you're in the hot seat. I feel for the food truck guy. Woo, feeling it. So, you know, we had, what we did as a chamber, I know this is hindsight, but it'll be continuing going forward, is that we were able to put together with our students the Invest in Souk brochure as well, because we want outside organizations coming to our community and opening up businesses, and we've even got it up on a BC website as well. So so from the work that we're doing with the Economic Development Committee, we are given guidance, and then we can fill in pockets of that journey and do what we can to support the entire program with our pieces. Did that? Yeah.
Excellent. And one last thought, and I guess the Chamber's renaissance has come at a particularly good time, given that we have over, 200,000 square feet of commercial potentially coming to this community within the next, I don't know how many years, but I did note in your minutes that you have been meeting with some of these developers.
Yeah, our executive director has, definitely, and because they came to the chamber just to find out what kind of opportunities were here. And so our executive director, Britt Santowski, was able to talk to them about the opportunity in Souk. We are, as a chamber, we are really excited about the incoming development. I mean, we need this commercial space more than anything, because there's nowhere, I'm sorry, I can't talk.
There we are.
Whew.
It's Karen Mason.
Okay, so wow, it's so hard to talk through this thing. So what we find is we have, as we know, over 650 licensed businesses here in our community. They have nowhere to grow. They have nowhere to move. There's no retail space. They're stuck in their homes, in their basements, or going to the West Shore. This retail space is just critical. The one that's going to be going up behind the Royal Bank, I understand that's going to be 50,000 square feet, but that's also going to include luxury condos. I mean, more luxury condos in Souk is going to be fabulous, because they'll have water views as well. So they're going to have commercial and retail on the ground floor, and then the one off of Eustis is going to be major for bringing in that retail component. The idea too is I think it's going to lower. I know that there are people that are very concerned that all this construction and development is going to be bad for the environment. I'm not an environmentalist expert, but for me, I'm thinking about all the jobs that are going to stay here. It's going to have less impact on our road. Less people are going to be going out. We can get more of our products and services here. I think in the big picture thing, this is really going to have a terrific impact on our carbon footprint for our community. I'm really, really excited about what's happening in this community, and I'm really excited about what the Chamber has done, and I'm really excited about the work that we've done with the district and the support we've had with district, because we wouldn't have been able to do in the last 2 years what we've done if it wasn't for all of us working in harmony together.
Thank you. Well said.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And it is all of us doing our part together. The Chamber, like a library, is a cornerstone of community. And we can't do it all. We need to work with others as well. And that's the harmony piece. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. I do hope that you'll stay, though, to support the next delegation, because this is where we have to work together in terms of sustaining those businesses that want to stay and grow with us. So please don't fly out the door. Just hold on a little bit longer. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry, one more comment is to shop local this Christmas, because holiday season, everyone is worried about shipping. Well, you don't have to worry about shipping when you shop local.
Well said. Thank you very much. And on that, I'd like to welcome our next delegation forward, which would be a presentation from Mr. Ramesh Nandini with the Curry King. Thank you for joining with us today. Challenges for Souk residents, and thank you for your family and your two boys for hanging in here. I know it was long and boring. Totally get it. Just be right with you. Welcome, and please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you for inviting us. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ramesh. I'm an immigrant. I'm from India, and she's my boss, my wife. Her name is Nandini. We call us a Nandi, so it's easy to call for everybody. And my both sons' name is Kritik and Krishant. Kritik is in grade 2 in a Sook Elementary School, and Krishant is kindergarten in a Sook Elementary School. So we live in Sook. It's been almost like 5 years. I came in 2016 and I started to work in a West Coast Grill restaurant as a sous chef. So in COVID time, unfortunately, I have to left my job. So I was thinking to do something, my own business. So I was thinking to do some Indian spices to import from India to keep it on my online business. So I tried to apply business license from District Sook. So I ended up, I need to get a commercial space to do that business, which I'm not holding any spices in my hand. It's all like online business. So this kind of ended up, I have to get a commercial space to do that business. So I just left the business, but I spent around like $5,000 to import all the goods from India. So it's kind of ended up, so then I thought to do a business like Indian takeout restaurant food. So finally I ended up with the Jenny's Pantry as like a subletting the kitchen as a evening time. So it was a kind of great idea. So it's kind of helping each other as a business-wise and like financial-wise also. Which is, I couldn't able to find any space in Sook. I went all over the space, like even I walked every corner of the space. So everywhere, it's a simple thing. They said they can't give a commercial space and somebody doesn't want to do a kitchen in some spaces. So I ended up to get a proper space, which is in the same building on the backside of the property. So which is already, I have a license. So I just need to change a small commercial dishwasher with a sink. So I came to the District Sook and I applied for a building permit application. So finally it came to, I have to spend $3,000 to get that building permit application, which is I don't have a single dollar to spend the money on it. So I talked to my landlord, which is going to be stable there. And I heard that there is no wheelchair access washroom in the building. So that's why they're holding a $3,000. I heard from one of the retailer who's recently did a renovation there in the same property. So I thought that I don't want to lose the money, but I needed my landlord help also. So I was keep on talking to him almost like 3 months. So finally he said, either you take the space, I'm not worried about what problem you're going to face it from the District Sook. Either you take the space or just leave the space. So now I lost my business and I left the business from there. I'm still looking for a commercial space in Sook only because we love Sook and we love the Sook community. And my wife likes the Sook. The reason she grown up pretty much like a Sook community weather like in India. So we like to stay in Sook. We're still looking for a commercial space. This all the problems I faced when I was trying to do business in Sook itself. So I need a kind of solution. I don't know what to do next. So this is what I'm facing right now. Today is the last day. I just pulled out my signboard from the property.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear that because I've came across the sign and enjoyed having takeout from your business and felt that you're filling a niche that we don't have, right? Yeah. And it's nice to have a takeout option that isn't pizza or pasta. So you've really filled a niche there in terms of the types of this sort of food that we all like to enjoy. Finding the space is a challenge, though. Yeah. We hear of the space being discussed that hasn't yet materialized. I know that our district staff we're constantly working to streamline processes to get these applications and this type of development our way, and it's just getting the stars to align to make that happen. I don't know that that'll provide the short-term solution that you need, though, because it's finding the vacant space. Like, you need basically something you can move into that's built now.
No, I went to like Sook Chamber or like the Sook community also. They can't do because of COVID time. So I went to Sook Legion, I went to, pretty much I went all over the space.
Yeah. Oh, that's a challenge. Councillor St. Pierre?
Sorry, just have a question. Actually, two questions, and one question and a comment. The first question had to do with something that I found really interesting and odd, and you said you needed a commercial space to run an online import business. Who
Yeah.
who's in charge of that, and how does that work?
When I applied for a business license to do a groceries, which is online, so what I heard from them, like I need a proper office space, which is a commercial space.
Who's them?
I can't mention the name, but it came from District Souk.
Okay, district.
Yeah,
So it's for the business license?
for the business
Okay,
license.
thank you.
Yeah. So pretty much I'm going to sit in my room using a laptop, picking my phone call. I'm just giving the delivery order. That's all I'm going to do that. So it's anyway, like, I'm learning. I'm just learning everything one by one. So that's what I faced it on that time. So I ended up pretty much like, I used all the spices for my restaurant right anyway. So I didn't lose the money, but I used it for my restaurant. But now my restaurant also is gone because there is no commercial space now.
Thank you. My other question was just, you must have thought of a food truck, maybe? Sorry.
We just heard a 35-minute story about food trucks, so
So
I don't want to do it.
It's come up recently.
No, like, that's my one of a suggestion also, but I really like to do either takeout or dine-in sit-out restaurant. I'm trying to build up like a theme of restaurant, which doesn't have in Souk. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Beddoes, then Logan's, please.
I guess I'm a little confused. If somebody was on the first problem, and what I'm interested here is to see if this gentleman can make a living in the next years as bills come up and maybe some opportunities come up. But for a home-based business, would you need a commercial? Can you not have a home-based business with a computer and import-export? I thought that's just something that we allow in district. Is there something that I'm not aware of, or staff, help?
Yeah, no, you can absolutely have a home-based business that fits only online. I'm just sending a message to the business license inspector here, and the information I have was that it wasn't located in a home, it was located at a commercial building at the time, so that's why the commercial license was required.
So if this gentleman decided to do it from his home, from his laptop in his bedroom, for instance, that would not be a problem for the District of Souk?
I think it would depend on the storage of the materials, but there are plenty of online businesses
Okay.
operated from homes in the
Okay, so
district.
there is
as a
some
home base.
possibility there. On the second thing, I know staff, any new buildings in commercial buildings that they're asking for more than one story, and the first story to be commercial, they can have apartments and stuff up top, and we have a new build going over here, it's not going to help you in the short term. And of course, the new mall that is, something's happening over there. So there is some opportunity in the future. Sorry, there isn't right now. I mean, if you beat the bushes looking for something and can't find it with your drive, I don't think I'm going to go beat them and find them for you. But it is a problem, and we're concerned with that. And our future bills, we're going to take some of that into account. It's not going to help you in the short term, but if we can get you in a home-based business to keep you in Souk, and that's what we're looking for, is to keep,
No, I'm
especially
happy.
new immigrants, and one's willing to work and be part of this community, man, I would be all over trying to help you.
I'm happy to wait for the future. Like, I'm not saying that I just need a solution for right away. I'm just saying that what I'm facing right now.
Yeah,
Even
glad
though
to hear it.
in the future, like if the big commercial property is going to come up, I know probably it's around like 80% of big short people is going to get first approach, right? Like there's a lot of people already talking about Costco, Walmart, everything. So we need a local people to support a local business. That's what I'm trying to talk now here. In future, if something commercial property comes, I'm going to end up on the last person on the line. So I need a solution right now itself. I'm just talking about that. So is there any way we can talk to the builders or commercial peoples, put a word, if the first preference for a local people to support a local business?
I hear what you're saying there. Having a background in leasing myself, there's always the case with the landlords, you know, some can be very, they're managing their risk, and they want those chain stores because of the, but we've learned that doesn't always provide security. When you see big retailers closing, Starbucks closing, and a lot of square footage. So I think that argument has changed, and that position has changed with COVID, where things have been really tested, and then you see the local businesses survive. I think you see one big fish eating up another fish. So you see someone like, there were independent groceries eaten up with the Costco's, which has now been eaten up by Amazon, but then the unique flavors and the characters and the unique shops are the ones that are still standing strong and lasting. I think where we as a council have an opportunity is when developers come forward and pitch their story to us of what they want to do. We have an ability there to ask, how are you working with our local Chamber of Commerce to ensure that our local businesses have an opportunity to thrive in your big scene, as opposed to, blocked off, they've brought in this and this and this, these anchors, and where's that space there? So we certainly have that opportunity to ask and to challenge that when these proposals come forward. So it is there. I think that's where the unique stories that you see of some of our own local businesses have been able to make it, and they're changing that. I think they're changing that because the other retail, a lot of them are starting to pack it in, and you're seeing it with a bigger fish come along. But people do desire the local unique shops. It's what keeps our communities vibrant and exciting. Nobody wants to come here to shop at Walmart.
Yeah.
And in fact, nobody wants to shop there because you can stay at home and shop at Amazon and sell, instead. But you do want to get out to find some local character and flavor at the same time and actually talk to somebody who knows the product as opposed to somebody that's just working there and selling something. It's different. The way of doing business, I think, is changing. So I think it's important, and that's why our relationships with the business community, you coming forward just like the previous delegation and sharing what's happening on the ground is meaningful and important to us. And we have an opportunity to do that in the future. But I think there's a way forward here. Just connect back with our staff on maybe something that you're looking to do on the interim from a home-based perspective. I was thinking maybe reach out to the museum. They have a commercial kitchen. I've seen different...
I talked to Lee already, so we are just approaching for a 1 day in a week. So pretty
Yeah.
much we're going to planning to start like from next week. So we are just thinking about like which day we want to pick it up. So we probably going to start from next week. So I'm going to meet them again tomorrow to talk exactly which day we want to do it, like 1 day in a week.
And get the word out somehow. If you're not on Twitter, you might need to be just to tweet out when you're there so people can find you, your followers can find you. There is a good way to use social media to get the word out, and I think people are not wanting to cook when it's dreary out. We need something home-cooked, spicy, and tasty, and I'd rather pick yours up than try to make it all myself. And many others are in the same situation, right? It's like, I'd rather just get that to go. So hope that you hang in there, and we appreciate that. Councillor Logans, did you have a question there?
It's mostly been addressed. I do want to thank you for coming forward. I know it's not easy, especially when it's kind of a broad ask and something that is really hard for us to answer right now. You said something about retail access bathrooms. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
So the building where I did a business, so that property need a wheelchair access washroom. So what I ended up, when I'm trying to apply for a building permit applications, just I need to add a sink and the dishwasher with the grease trap because I want to extend my business a little bigger. Right now I used to do only a 3 sink. So it's quite hard for me to do all the dishwasher at the end of the night. So that's what my plan to change that. So what I heard from one of the retailer, he recently did a renovation. He did a $3,000 deposit money, which he didn't get back because there is no wheelchair access washroom on the building. So the same reason I don't want to spend a $3,000, which is going to be corded on that. So I talked to my landlord and I told him, it's not my problem. The wheelchair access is not my problem. It's my problem is to do my business, that's it. So I spoke to my landlord, either you spend the $3,000, help me to support to do the business. So he finally walked out. The landlord has walked out, so I couldn't able to do anything, and I can't get my building permit applications, and the landlord gave me a time, and he said to vacate from the space.
Right.
So that's what it ended up.
Yes, right. I'm sorry about that happened. I'm just trying to get a sense of what you need and what other businesses like yours would need
I'm
moving
doing a
ahead.
takeout food, which is pretty much is a food consumption, so people want to use a washroom access. I don't know how it works out. Even once I came out from that spot, there is 2 retailers is coming. I don't know, did they get the proper paper application done or not, but they already start the business. which I'm trying to do a proper way in a paperwork. I got this situation, and people doesn't want to follow the proper way, and they already start the business. So this is what I'm facing a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming everyone, I'm just facing this one, which makes me a little bit different. I don't want to say some word, which just makes me feel something different. Either I'm not a Canadian, pretty much like that I start to think. So I just left the business, I need to get a relaxed down. Anyway, I'm going for a vacation.
No, it's an excellent point and an interesting case study that you bring forward, which is that our current setup in Souk is one for all pre-established business, and just as of today, food trucks, right?
Yeah.
So there's no direct line of sight for anyone who is a startup business who is looking for room to grow, as the Chamber mentioned. There is nowhere for people to grow. So how can we, through our Economic Development Committee, hopefully, work to create a different culture in our community where people can have, like we have the makerspace at Edward Milne, that's a perfect place to start. But then once you start making things there, where do you sell them? Yes, you could probably do it online, but again, that takes away that local community feel that we have here and that we want to build here. So what I'm hoping, and council can consider and staff can consider going forward, is where is that middle ground and how can we support the middle ground? Because you're 100% right that the new developments coming in are not going to be local businesses. It's going to be very expensive commercial retail space, which is good, and we do need some of that. But again, that doesn't support people who are currently working and growing here. So I don't have the answer for that, but those are the questions that we really need to think about when it comes to economic development. It's not just about let's build commercial. We need to really think about building commercial spaces that support the way our community functions, which is one of togetherness and inclusiveness and innovation. And I really love how innovative you've been and how hardworking you've been trying to make this work, and I'm sorry that it's a stumbling block right now.
No, it's all my learning process. Even though so many times I went to district Souk, this is all my new steps. I'm an immigrant, so I'm learning everything. I'm not blaming anybody. Mm-hmm. It's my learning process. What I'm saying, if I get a clear paper, clear idea what I need to do, I'm just going to follow that.
Yeah.
If you say one thing today and tomorrow if you're saying different things, my mind will not stay stable. I just need a proper paper to read out and just do it properly. That's it.
And that's exactly where we're lacking as a district. We don't have that for you. And that's our fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that's not there. And hopefully we can, we're so new too. We're only 20-something years old as a community. So it's really a learning process for us too, which is why I'm really grateful for you coming forward today and talking about this, because it is a huge gap that we need to look to fill immediately. Yeah, so I appreciate that. I really hope that we can be as innovative as you and make things affordable for people who are like you and your family who are starting and growing their business.
Sweet.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I would like to follow up on some of what Councillor Logans was talking about and some of what Mr. Ramesh was talking about. And that's just, and something you mentioned actually, and that's basically how do we protect our local businesses from Walmart? So Walmart has a model. It comes in, when you're a certain size and so on and so forth, and Souk is certainly going to reach that at some point. It's looking for a certain number of square feet, and then it's going to put a whole bunch of businesses that are going to put a lot of local businesses out of business. And I'm just curious, as we look at this, how are we actually managing, how are we going to manage that piece? Because certainly with a huge amount of retail space coming in, that could happen in the next couple of years. And quite frankly, if we haven't actually got provisions in place to prevent that sort of operation, it might be too late. It just might be too late already. But I'm curious about that piece, and I'd like us to be maybe looking at it, especially with the OCP coming through. There was another, it escaped me, sorry.
So I don't know that's a question we can answer tonight. Rather, it's a problem we need to address and work on together. What is the problem we're trying to solve together, and how do we go forward with this into the future? Because you're completely correct in that. But I think there's a bigger online threat still than just Walmart.
and the other thing did come to me.
Yeah.
And that was, we have an affordable housing provision. It's not wonderful, 10%, whatever it is. It might be time to look at asking for 10% affordable retail space.
That's an interesting one. I see Mr. McInnes is listening. So there's a lot of takeaways. But yeah, I don't think it's something that we can delve into tonight, but it's something that this sort of thing helps a lot when we plan together for the future, is ensuring that our businesses grow with us and are not left behind. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we have this Community Economic Development Strategy and Action Plan, and it's quite an exciting document. It's got a lot of content, teleworking, facilitate new commercial office space is Strategic Action 2.1, and it likely dovetails with I'm just so grateful for your butter chicken, and so happy to hear that the museum may be the source of future butter chicken for us at the Batemans. But, you know, in Googling, I did note that a lot of communities, larger urban centers, but now also Duncan, have what they call shared use commissary kitchens, which effectively was what Jenny's was, right?
Yes.
Because she cooked there, but there was a sausage maker before you, and I think some others. So these, as everyone knows, these are typically, you pay by the hour, you get to rent out the facility, you get to, so I would hope that as we lobby with our new developers, that a space like this can be built into their 200,000 square feet of commercial, and that, you know, maybe a food court kind of setup where we have multiple souk businesses operating in a space like that. So I'd like to suggest that the Community Economic Development Committee add the concept of a shared use commissary kitchen to their
Yeah,
their
so maybe
deliberations
you
on
can
this.
write that as a notice of motion.
Okay.
On what we're learning here. And then the other pieces there, like downtown, there was the Hudson, you know, empty space that allowed for a number of different businesses, including a child's play area to evolve and thrive in. Calgary one time took a derelict park, and the city took over the park and put in some community amenity buildings and created a shared space, and they had a competition where certain businesses could lease that space for up to 2 years to get them going, and then the intent is that they grow and move into other spaces. So I think we still have that opportunity here. There's a lot of things that are planning, but it hasn't broken ground yet, so that's why this is important now. Okay? Yes, final comments, and then we'll move on. Councillor Beddoes?
I just have a question, and
Yep.
this is through you to council. Buffy's, is it operating now, or is it sitting idle?
I think the liquors, the
The
wine
liquor-
store is open.
But I don't think there's
The pub
a
is-
restaurant, and it drives me crazy because we go out every Friday night, and we're have a hard time to find, you know, there's only like a couple of restaurants in town. We do not have a good selection, and I'm just wondering, I don't know whether.
No, I went over there already. And
Okay, well, I just thought, what a perfect spot for you. But you know, I suspect you have checked that out, but I would just do that out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McMath?
And just back to a short-term solution, are you still interested in doing your online spice?
I can do that still, online spices, but I'm kind of like, this is kind of frustration for me, like after the COVID, like I've been facing so many things.
Yep.
So what we finally decided, like we just want to do 1 day in a week from Souk Museum, and we're planning to take for like a 2 months vacation to go back home to India, see our parents, get relaxed and come back.
Yeah.
So by the time if I find any solution, like if someone touch base with me, then I want to start up with a fresh mind. So this is what I decided right now. Even though like if the online things is working out, once I come back, I will start, like if they need a proper commercial space, then I have to find it back again.
So what we heard was that is if you're doing it within your home, it's
But-
not necessary.
It's necessary, that's what I heard from the district, so because the building where I'm staying, which is a Knox Presbyterian, like Knox Church apartment building, the building is commercial zone, which I'm staying as apartment. I don't know, like, this is what I'm saying, like, I'm still learning, I don't know what is the paper work has to be done. So if they said it's rejected, like, I have to go back again, and they said it's a commercial property, then I have to go back to the manager. This is kind of like running here and there like for a month.
That's what
I
causes
just-
you stress.
Yeah, I
of
just
course.
need a proper paper. Hey, this is the paper, read it out, This is commercial zone, you can't do it. And this is the space for residential, you can do it. So that's all the answers I need. I don't want to go like 10 times here and there.
Of course not, yeah. So leave that with us then, because that's for us to discuss and provide you, and not just you, many other people, clarity. So then I would just add to Councillor Bateman's upcoming motion, notice of motion, that piece also be incorporated to that.
There's more to look into. Okay, well, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you to your family for hanging in there. I know that it's hard on the kids.
I just have one thing to about, I don't know to whom I have to talk to the district souk, like, if I'm planning to do a takeout food at the souk museum, currently I have my business license at 6596 Souk Road, at the old building where is Jenny's Pantry. Should I have to change my business license from there to souk museum, which is I'm going to do only 8 days, which is 2 months, weekly once? Should I have to change my business license from here to there? I'm just asking now. I need to know this.
Yeah, there's a requirement just to change the address, just to notify us, and then we'll let you know if there's anything else that needs to change. But yes, you could contact the business licensing department to talk about that.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. My son goes to Souk Elementary too, so you're in a good place there. Bye. Yep. Thank you. All right. Okay, and thank you, Chamber, for hanging in here, but we don't want...
You're not as cute as them, but you can go.
You don't need to leave. Of course, you're welcome to stay with us right through to the end of tonight's meeting.
Can we?
Yes, we want you to.
Yeah, run while you can.
Thanks so much, everybody.
All right, good night, everybody. Aw. Okay, so on to item number 9, report of the CAO.
Just a couple quick updates, Your Worship, this evening. You'll see 3 new faces as of next Monday at the District of Souk. Ben Curry is our Deputy Director of Financial Services. He'll be starting on Monday. Chief Ted Ryder will be starting on Monday. And as of today, we just got a signed offer back from Mia Carrollsfield, who will be our Climate Action Coordinator under the Career Launcher Grant Program for a 9-month period. So Maya will actually be at the Public Works Yards sharing office space with Jessica Bolquist.
Great, thank you, Mr. McInnes. Public question and comment period. I see everyone has left the room. Aw. Thank you to those that are still online. Okay, so we have our consent agenda. So look that items 11.1 be adopted by general consent. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Logans. Any discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor, and that's none opposed. Thank you. Reports. So we have our external liaison appointments. So, okay, so I think some of you have already been, I'm just going to read this out and we'll see where we land, okay? A bio break has been requested, so yes, I suggest we take a 4-minute recess to return at 9:01, or pardon me, 9:51 sharp. 8:51 sharp. Still in another Reports. Okay, so I'm going to read these off one by one and see where we go. So I'm going to just read that council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as Souk's representative to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7, 2022, and that council appoint Councillor Ebony Logans as Souk's alternate representative to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2021 and expiring November 7, 2022. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any good? All right. Okay. All right, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. The next one is that council appoint Councillor Al Beddoes as Souk's representative to the Souk and Electoral Area Parks and Recreation Commission, C-Park, for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7, 2022. And that council appoint Councillor Dana Lajeunesse as Souk's alternate representative to the Souk and Electoral Area Parks and Recreation Commission, C-Park, for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor McMath. Discussion, anyone? Nope, we'll call the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is that council appoint Mayor Maya Tate as Souk's representative to the Tumuk Treaty Advisory Committee for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7, 2022. And that council appoint Councillor Ebony Logans as Souk's alternate representative to the Tumuk Treaty Advisory Committee for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7, 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor? And none opposed is unanimous. Okay, and the last one is that council appoint Councillor Jeff Bateman as Souk's representative to the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022 and expiring November 7, 2022. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor McMath. The only change here is with the CRD doing their whole review on this. So if we need to switch it up to meet their new committee structure, might need to do that in the new year. So, but for now, I think it's status quo because that's still working its way through. Okay.
And there will be an option for professionals within the family court, and perhaps your husband would perhaps fit as an appointee.
I think we should, let's
Municipalities are
appoint
able to
him.
do that under the new guidelines.
That could be fun. You'd be like, what? Anyway, what did you do at that meeting? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. But he would bring an interesting perspective with his professionalism. Okay, so the next one is that council appoint. Now, was it Councillor St. Pierre or Councillor Lajeunesse? Souk Region Historical? Okay, so that council appoint Councillor Lajeunesse as liaison to the Souk Region Historical Society for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022, expiring November 7, 2022. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And then the EMCS liaison was? Okay, and that council appoint Councillor St. Pierre, Tony St. Pierre as liaison to the Edward Milne Community School Society for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2022, expiring November 7, 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Logans. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed? That's unanimous. Great. Thank you, everyone. So next up is,
What about this, I noted it under 9, Souk Community Association. We did have Councillor Beddoes as a representative last year.
they don't want a liaison.
Oh, they don't?
No, so I think imposing one may not build, the intent was to build relations, and it didn't seem to be interpreted that way, so
Okay.
we'll leave it for now. Okay,
It is.
so the next one is deputy mayor's schedule. So these have been put in, that council appoint the following deputy mayors for 2021, January, February, Councillor Jeff Bateman, March, April, Councillor Emily Logans, May, June, Councillor Dana Lajeunesse, July, August, Councillor Al Beddoes, September, Councillor Tony St. Pierre. July, August, Councillor Al Beddoes? Right, what did I say? I didn't say that? I'm sorry.
I was reading it, I assumed you said it.
Okay. September is Councillor Tony St. Pierre, and October, Councillor Megan McBath. Good?
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Logans. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. So here, in the 2022 regular meeting schedule, there was just, this is correct on the screen, there was just an error brought to my attention here. So there's a few additional meetings. What is printed here was November 21st, but it's actually November 7th would be the inaugural, November 14th, November 28th, and then December 12th. So there's just a slight adjustment there. The November 7th one isn't on the screen, though, but it's in my materials.
Yeah, the November 7th would be a special meeting, so it wouldn't be on the schedule of regular council meetings. It's just been provided for council information.
Okay, so for those that, that survive an election and thrive to be affirmed into office, that'll happen on November the 7th, and then it'll be the 14th and 28th, the regular flow of business will pick up again. Okay.
Finished on October 3rd.
But our last meeting as a council together will be October 3rd, 2022. Our last meeting as a council, so I hope that everybody is here, because that's like the end of this.
Do not take vacation.
No, don't book it off. Okay, so here is then that council approves the 2022 regular council meeting schedule as follows. January 10th, 2022, January 24th, 2022, February 14th, February 28th, March the 14th, March 28th, April 11th, April 25th, May 9th, May 24th, June 13th, June 27th, July 11th, July 25th, September 26th, October 3rd. We don't need to add in November 7th, but we will put in November 14th, November 28th, and December 12th, all 2022. And that's because we published that, and it has to be posted. So that's why we don't want to bind the hands of a future council, but we do have legislative requirements to meet. It's just setting up the meeting space, setting the room, setting the stage, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. Any questions? We all know what we're doing. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So next up is an alternate approval process policy, CO-018. Over to staff, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's me again. Staff are putting forward a new policy to address proceedings during an alternative approval process that are not otherwise addressed in legislation. The community charter contains requirements for how to conduct an AAP, all of which were followed during our most recent process. The province has also published a detailed procedure guide to supplement these legislative requirements. During our recent AAP, feedback was received that residents would have appreciated the opportunity to submit their elector response forms electronically. The community charter is silent on this option. The province's guide strongly recommends that if this option is made available, it be guided by policy. As noted in the staff report, this is not common practice in BC, likely due to concerns about reliability of email transmission and privacy concerns. Staff believe that we have identified a means to mitigate these concerns by creating an opportunity for forms to be uploaded through a secure portal on our webpage. A full privacy impact assessment would be conducted before the process went live. Should Council wish to proceed with a policy allowing for electronic submission, several other processes have been formalized within the proposed policy. These include recognition of a second option to estimate the number of eligible electors, which is provision 1B in the policy, some clarification regarding communication processes, and clarification of timeline for records retention. There is one small change to the policy in front of you tonight that staff are asking Council to consider. Item 3B should state that electoral response forms will be destroyed 1 year after the final results have been determined, not 60 days. If Council is comfortable with this amendment and wishes to proceed with the policy, a motion to adopt as amended would be in order, and staff would make the change before the policy is implemented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Temple, for bringing this forward. I think what it does is we do something, we get feedback, we learn, we find ways to improve it, and here the policy is just doing that. So no questions from me. Councillor St. Pierre?
It's a question and comment. I'm concerned about the electronic submission, to be perfectly honest, mostly because I think we all know that social media can have a lot of echo chambers, it can have a lot of misinformation, it can be very powerful. I have a concern, and I don't know exactly how to address it in this particular case. I just feel that you could have something viral on Facebook that completely takes over a process that should lead to a good decision and to good community input, but doesn't. And I think that's a lot easier to happen on social media than it is by other means that are a little slower. I'm not sure, for example, if someone submits a form quickly, no big problem, you can take a few clicks and you've submitted your form. How do you take it back if you found out that you were misinformed, if you changed your mind? Not really sure about that. I mean, it's very easy to quickly get something done on the computer with a tiny bit of information that you've gotten from a dubious source.
And that could be true, but I think we still have that to deal with anyway. Folks get their information from different ways, and they'll respond, and some may fill out a form and bring it in anyway, based on what they heard online. Like, I don't feel there's any way that, that we could do that. That's the only thing.
I think that my concern with the online is that it's very quick. It's kind of like, do you edit your email before you send it out? It's really easy to send something out awfully fast and just get it done and feel like you've done a good thing, you've signed a petition, you've done whatever. Your good friends have told you about this thing, and obviously you should be, weighing in, but you don't necessarily have all the information, you haven't put a lot of thought into it. And that's sort of our digital culture.
Well, I had a resident tell me that they signed a form to get the person at their door off their doorstep. And gave it to them to hand in that moment. So it still could happen. So I think I'm not sure, I totally hear what you're saying, I just,
Takes more effort to go on the doorstep.
maybe, Councillor Logans?
With more effort comes a lack of accessibility, and I think it's our job to make sure that everyone has the right and ability to vote. So that's why I do support the electronic submission, so long as staff are comfortable that it's tested and it does go the way it is. Whether people are misinformed or not, they have the right to vote on an issue. So that's where I draw the line on that one.
Yeah, Councillor McMath?
I was just looking for a little bit of clarity. So when people wish to vote electronically, do they still need to go into the district office? Or they don't need to attend at all?
No, the forms would be made available on our website like they were this time, but rather than printing them off and needing to physically deliver them to the district, you would be able to fill it out and then upload a PDF to our website. So there would be no need to physically attend in person.
Okay, great. And then just a follow-up also, you said that we need to have like a security assessment done for this to be completed. What's the cost of that?
That's done in-house. There's no cost.
An in-house assessment. Okay, thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre?
Just a response to Councillor Logan's comment. I agree completely with accessibility, but I'm worried about clickbait democracy. I would be much more comfortable if someone could actually change their response after they had a chance to think about it, or if someone discussed it with them, but I don't see that happening. So it's a bit, I just don't like the immediacy of it. I don't like that someone can just get caught up in a quick whatever, and then they fired it off, and that's it.
Ms. Temple?
Thank you. Speaking to Councillor St. Pierre's question about whether or not a person can change their response, unlike an election in which you can't get your ballot back, in an AAP you actually do have the right to come in and ask for your form back, or if we were done in a petition-style list, to have your name struck from the list. So there is an opportunity to change your mind.
Good. Councillor Bateman?
So through you to staff, I see this is not a common practice, and because of the unreliability of the systems that the email arrives upon. Yeah, I was all keen on this, but Councillor St. Pierre's made good points. We are in this age of disinformation, and when it comes to actually doing the work to get out here to put it through the door in person, yeah, it's challenging. I don't know.
It is, but I think that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And I think printers are not common all the time in people's homes anymore. So it isn't always easy to just print something and fill it out. Yes, you can come in and do it, whoops. But I think I agree with Councillor Logan's, it's just making the accessibility, and then the safekeeping of the information online is also important. Councillor McMath?
How would they be validating someone's email address with being a resident here?
Similar to the process now, the person signs the form to say their name and their address, and we verify that they are a resident of that address. The email address wouldn't come into play.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. This is where our staff will take the form and match up that and verify with like the voter's book or that, just to confirm, and then also to make sure that the same person isn't submitting 10. Like it's one only, and that, that it is a real live person. So, Councillor Logans?
Question through you to staff. With the electronic submissions, would those be printable and then uploadable by PDF? Do you have to have a wet signature, or is a digital signature accepted? Is it like a printable form? I don't care either way, but just wondering how it works.
I don't actually know where we would end up on that. We've recently done some training on digital signatures and their applicability to most of our forms and processes. I think that would be something that would be worked out throughout the process.
Councillor Bateman?
No.
Okay, other questions? So the recommendation is that council adopt CO-018 alternative approval process policy as amended. Moved by Councillor Logans, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Comments, Councillor Logans? No, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I think.
Microphone?
Oh, sorry. I think staff is competent enough to work out a system that would verify our concerns. I think it's a new age. People want to do this, and they need accessible to our systems. I'm okay with it.
Other comments? Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, so it's great that we'll have again, we'll, as we did this last time, have a website with key details, and we'll be sure that we populate that website with as much information as we can to counteract disinformation in the community. So, yeah, so I'm in favor of this.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I'm much more comfortable, given Ms. Temple's comments about being able to actually go back and change. So, for example, if we put out information, or anybody puts out information, people can actually decide otherwise, and that makes a big difference to me, at least.
There's also the case where if the number of, in an AAP where you have the number, the threshold, say it's 1,000 forms, sort of, is like the no, council can receive that. I think we're all aware of chatter that's happening in the community, whether we're in the group or not in the group. It comes to our attention. Someone will share it. They do with me anyway. Hey, did you know this was happening or that is happening? Okay, fine. And then you see where it lands. Should that happen where there's some big, not big or even small, spewing out fake news that does something, council can then also go to a referendum and spend that time to get other information out. And then that's where, this is a step in that process where you can in fact do that. So there is still that other piece out there that exists to our, to the way we do things. Yeah. Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Bylaws, section 13.1. This is zoning amendment bylaw 5927 or 5627 Woodlands Road. So it is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 809 600-85 2021. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. We're on adoption. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is the sewer use amendment bylaw. So that is that council adopt the bylaw cited as sewer use amendment bylaw number 827-224-01 2021. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor of adoption, and that's unanimous, thank you. Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw number 833. So we were under that ministerial order, M192, I believe. I want to put that in the past. And so amending our procedural bylaw now, and I believe the one change is to permit, this is from our last meeting. How about that? Wow. 4 members of council physically unable to attend in person to attend meetings electronically at any one time. But I'll turn it over to staff just for anything further on this.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that this is in response to council's request to make this amendment, and that you may consider further amendments to allow for public to participate electronically. Recent changes to the community charter do permit this. However, the province has indicated they're going to release a best practices guide in the short term, and we'd like to, as was said earlier, run it through that best practices process. So we're recommending we wait until that's been published to do further amendments to the bylaw.
Okay, that makes sense, and sort of the motivation here, as I understand it, is 4 forms quorum, and we have to be physically unable to get into chambers. So that's where we went, and what if this is out, and that is out, and this is out, and this is out, we're stuck. How do we get on with the business of the day? It would be interesting, staff arrives here, the public, and council's virtual forum, quorum of 4, but life happens, we're still in this pandemic, so hopefully that won't happen. It would be weird if it did, but at least we have the ability to carry on and do the work we need to do. Okay, questions, anything further? I think it's good. Wait till the best practice guide comes out so that there's consistency. And that is then that council give first, second, and third reading to Council Procedural Amendment Bylaw number 833-728-03, 2021. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor McMath. Discussion. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. No new business, but council verbal reports. Who would like to begin? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I've had 2 occasions now in the last couple of weeks where I had a citizen email me, and I forwarded on to the proper department. And the staff reacted in such quick form. I had one of the ladies come up to me today on the street and said how wonderful the process works. And that goes to Jeff Carter's operations. And she further followed up that she had it came out of it as a bylaw complaint, and bylaw was on that right away and resolved the issue. And a happy citizen was absolutely amazed how quickly their response, and I give credit to staff for that. It's just a matter of bringing it to their attention. They rectified it, made it happen, and it makes us all look good. So thanks to staff. Mr. Carter's not here, so I can't bug him personally, but I appreciate it.
Okay, other comments? Updates? Councillor Beddoes, or pardon me, Bateman.
Oh. He's the one with the hair. Just on that subject of receiving emails, I received one from a Woodlands Road resident who has a small farm and a horse, and the fireworks that were going off startled this horse, caused it some damage, and off it went to the vet. And so he wrote asking about whether a permit had been issued for the release of those fireworks, and apparently it had not. So I know over the Halloween period, that a lot of fireworks have been going off. Personally, I don't mind them, but we don't have dogs and cats. It's fascinating. On Halloween night, I was out on the lawn. I could see fireworks from where I was standing, a few, and then I was hearing bangs going off all over the community. It was like a conversation was happening between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And I think it would be wonderful if we as a community could determine, okay, this will be the time we'll do this, and or have a central spot where people can release fireworks, gather in community, on the flats perhaps. Yeah, so that just came to mind as you spoke about residents writing us. And indeed, I forwarded that immediately to our bylaw officer. She got on it immediately. So the 2 of you out there, Moonfist and whoever else, yeah, please keep writing. it's good. So I also attended a Climate Action Committee meeting, and yeah, we're working on this Climate Action Plan framework, which we'll be presenting to Council in January. That's it.
Other comments from members of council? So I was just digging for a letter that I received here. It was on the fireworks. And let's see, in the absence of any visual display, couldn't be called worse, just blatant contempt for public peace. Who gave permission for this? Second possibility may be, given the shifting location of the explosions, maybe the noise was somehow automated or computer generated. If that is the case, someone in your chamber must know who was behind the show. Other comments about the noise basically ends by saying, maybe you can't get the yahoos out of soup, but you can sure do a better job of keeping them under control. I don't know who's doing the fireworks. That's not anything that comes through to bylaw is private, and I don't know all these things. So I'm just sort of sharing. I don't know everything that goes on. I know some things, but not everything. And working on it, though. And this is another interesting piece that I will save for another day. I think it's a warrant for my arrest from another group. Oh, they called me too, so it's just, there is a lot of...
Send them some Bitcoin, so hopefully they're off my back.
Exactly, there's a lot of warrants out there, and it's intimidating to get them, and flights and hotel vouchers and all sorts of things, and just, I don't know, there's still a lot of... There's a lot of scams, and we need to be careful. Just a reminder too, there's the emails that creep in sometimes are very, like, I don't know, so I send them to our IT. Is this spam? Is this spam? Is this spam? Because sometimes they're really close with the way the voicemail message materialized, Microsoft updates, passwords, and sometimes you can look and there's one thing that's a little bit off, like when Microsoft isn't spelled correctly, it's usually a good indicator. But some of them I don't know, but our IT staff will be great to help us, because like other communities where ransomware have come in, it's crippling to an organization, and so we kind of laugh, oh, it won't happen, but the municipalities that are enduring didn't expect it to happen either, and everything's completely shut down and hijacked. We have backups to backups in places I won't disclose, but it's safekeeping of the information, and that's really, really important, especially as we move into more online stuff. You know, it's just kind of miss the fax machine and the pager sometimes. It was much more simple, and dialing phone. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so on that note, I don't have anything to report. I may have shared with you that that I am dealing with supporting my father, who had a very complex surgery and a long healing process. So I appreciate the support that I'm receiving there. It is a bit challenging. The healthcare system really needs support. It is starting to fall apart, and it's just a challenge. One nurse manning 2 wards, both acute care and the rehab side, over 50 units with one person who's been pulled in from somewhere else. And other times there is no care. There's very minimal pieces. Trying to reach an elder who doesn't use a phone, and their portable phones don't work. And there doesn't seem to be a sign of getting one. So it's challenging in the health sector for sure. You will need to show proof of vaccination now when visiting. There's some exemptions for children under 12 and so forth, but that's new. And even Sea Park, if you have children playing hockey, you want to go public skating. For a while there wasn't a requirement, but it is in effect now. So all of this is starting to come out now. So it is still creating friction. I myself was like, wasn't paying attention, but went skating and didn't have my wallet on me. I just had my phone. So then I had to go back and get my ID and then wait back in line again. Like, these things happen, and everyone's just doing their best in a really strained time. So just, I want to thank everyone for holding everyone together, and let's just be as strong as we can as we prevail through this. We do have one released item to rise and report on, and that is that council recommend the appointment of Dal Little and Jim Perkins as District of Sauk resident elector representatives to the Sauk and Electoral Area Parks and Recreation Commission, C-Park, for a 2-year term ending December 31st, 2023. So they're both on the commission now, and that'll just see them through for another 2 years. We thank them for their service and for reapplying. Good job chairing. They're coming back and staying on. Okay, so that's it then. I'll bring us to the end then. That council adjourned the regular meeting of November 8th, moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. Stay safe, everyone. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.